Hey everyone, today I am in Kearney, Missouri. This is the hometown of Frank and Jesse James. The farmstead where they grew up is here in the area. And what's interesting is Jesse James was actually buried on that farmland. In fact, it was within sight distance of the window where his mother slept. But in 1902, Jesse was moved right here in Mount Olivet Cemetery. Here you can see a government marker with Jesse James, and it's referencing Quantrill's Raiders. But this is where Jesse James has been buried forever, right here in this cemetery. The reason that he was buried on the farm homestead was that there was a fear of something happening to Jesse's body. And so they didn't want him dug up or sold or something like that to a circus, carnival, whatever. So his mother actually buried him on the homestead out there. And that homestead held his body until 1902 when he was moved out here. His mother kept guard over his body and his marker and everything like that. But at the same time, she sold tours to the house and sold rocks that were on top of the grave for 25 cents each. The funny thing about those rocks is that she just gathered them from the river, and when the rocks kind of ran out, she went back down to the river and then got more rocks. So it was a constant thing of profit. The interesting thing that I want to show you here is people are taking chips off of this grave, this newer one, just like they did with the older one that was on the property. And you can see what's left of the original headstone inside the museum that's built there on the property. But you can tell people have chipped away some of it right here in these little different areas. They've chipped away little pieces, and you can definitely see it right through there, just to have a piece of it. Now what's interesting is Jesse's father got sick and died in California, and then his mother remarried. His mother's name was Zerelda. Who you see buried next to him right there is actually his wife, Zerelda. Now his wife was also his first cousin, and his first cousin was named after his mother. His mother is right here, Zerelda Samuel. That's her name after she married. Now, from what I understand, she died on a train ride just outside of the Oklahoma City area en route to California. Like I said, this is his mother, and she continued to run tours of the homestead up until she died. And after that, brother Frank came to the homestead and ran tours, and instead of selling rocks for like 25 cents, he then sold rocks for 50 cents. 25 cents back then is about the equivalent of $5 now. So it's a pretty hefty price for a tour of the place and a rock. And they charge admission, and they still sell rocks off of that grave that are from that river. Now this is the gentleman that she married, and he was a doctor. But one other interesting thing is the Pinkertons came out to that homestead with hopes of killing Frank and Jesse James. And so what they did is they threw a railroad flare into the house. It was basically a ball and had some material burlap around it to burn, and they wanted to burn the house down, basically kind of to flush those boys out to see if they could kill them or see if they were there. The problem with that, though, is it did not burn right away. They removed some of the siding, put the fire out, and then they took that little flare and put it in the fireplace. When it was in the fireplace is when it exploded. Now, when you read things online, they're saying it was a bomb. It basically made a bomb in the fireplace with that material. It wasn't a stable concoction. In the process of that bomb, Mother Zerelda lost her arm, and so she was left with one arm, her left arm, the rest of her life. And one other thing is, this is the half-brother, and he's labeled as retarded or mentally challenged nowadays, as you say it, but it says killed by a bomb right there. That same bomb or that railroad flare is what killed Archie right there. And when that went off, he was killed the very next day. But he was a half-brother that Frank and Jesse basically looked out for, because there was actually a lot of outlaws and things like that that picked on him, or even tried to get back at him or something. So they looked out for him, but that bomb or that railroad flare got to him. Just to avoid confusion, they always referred to Zerelda as Zerelda. And then here, she was actually, the family actually referred to her as Z, as to not confuse Jesse's wife with the mother. But pretty interesting that it was his cousin, actually. Mount Olivet Cemetery, there's that little pavilion there, and it basically points you to where this grave is. And there's also some arrows that say 50 paces. And then you'll arrive right here at Jesse's grave. So we are now at the James home, and you do have to pay to enter this. This is a museum and home that you can tour. I gotta warn you though, they don't allow filming on the inside of this home, and there's not much to speak of on the inside. This home did go through a restoration effort, and they've done a great job with it. But you can see there's white siding, and then you can see what's underneath. It's kind of a rustic old farm home, but it's neat that it's still here and you can tour it. This is a slave cabin that probably would have been on the property. This is a reproduction, and they've recreated it here to just show what it might have looked like on the property. And this, of course, is an outhouse. It's interesting, these thorns were all over on the outside of the property, and I had to wonder if the James boys put them around on purpose to keep people away that they didn't want, like the Pinkertons. So this was the original site of where his grave was, and right there is where his mother slept, and she slept in a bed that was angled this direction with a loaded gun, and she was ready to shoot at you if you came out here and tried to steal anything. And this is the original footstone that still remains here. But this is a reproduction headstone that's here. Now this is how the home appeared in 1978. And then here are a few photos of the restoration effort that took place. So they've done a great job on the home. This is a model of the home inside the museum. And then of course they have some amazing old photos of the home as well, which is great that they had those when they did the restoration, so they can try to keep it original. And here's a photo of how it appears today, which is just like what I showed you. One other interesting thing that they have here is the bomb that the Pinkertons threw in the home. That's pretty cool right there. But that bomb did some damage to Zerelda. It actually caused her to have her right arm amputated, as you can see there. This is Jesse's mother next to his grave, and you can see how tall that monument originally was. She did a lot of tours through the years because a lot of people trekked out there. They actually have the original monument. There's not much left to it, as you can see here. It's really been chipped and pieces stolen and taken, so this is all that is left now. Now this is the casket that Jesse was buried in. They exhumed his body in 1995 to do a DNA test because there were several people across the nation claiming to be the real Jesse James. When they did the DNA test, they found out that it was Jesse James who was buried there. And you can see this bullet that was found in the casket where he would have been shot and wounded, and it would have stayed in his body. So there were little clues besides the DNA that confirmed that this was really Jesse James buried in the cemetery. So the others that are out there, those are all fakes. Here you can see the casket handle. And this is the artist's depiction of the shooting when Mr. Ford shot Mr. James. Jesse James went by Mr. Howard, and it's often referred to as the coward that shot Mr. Howard. And that is the home that Jesse was living at with his wife and 2 kids where he was shot. Now he was actually dusting a picture on the wall and straightening it when Mr. Ford shot him. So they have that actual duster, and they have the actual picture that he was straightening. So to me, that's fascinating. Just pieces of history like that. Here you can see a picture of a young Jesse James taken in 1864. There's some old handcuffs that Frank James had that he was wearing. It's interesting to see how many artifacts they actually have in this museum. I don't think they were too keen on me filming inside this museum, but they didn't say anything about me not doing it, so I'm actually adding some commentary later. So this is a revolver carried by Alan Palmer, and there's a drawing of him and a photo in a memoir that he gave his grandson. During the restoration process, they found all of these artifacts either in or around the home. Pretty interesting these things were lying around like that. And they have a lot of just different things that were passed along and kept within the family. And this is in the museum part, so I don't know why the family didn't have a problem with me filming inside here. Now this was the stepfather, the Dr. Samuel, and some of his items that he used as a doctor. And this was a sewing machine that Zerelda used. And these are all James family heirlooms. Thank you for watching. Please hit the thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, if you're into these kind of videos, please check out the Gravesite of Frank James, and also my video on the man who shot Jesse James.